employee in your organization sends tens to hundreds of emails. That could be to prospects, that could be to existing customers, part of those business relationships. But those are actually thousands of brand impressions every week that are completely underused.
Can you talk a little bit about speed and simplicity for MSPs in your experience? What are they looking for, and how do you feel you guys meet them on those expectations?
The MSP market is crowded. The winners are going to be the ones who make complex things simple for their clients.
We're talking to Exclaimer here because they have a lot of success in this area. They know what they're doing. They like working with MSPs.
So MSPs are hunting for recurring revenue without the recurring headaches, and that really is Exclaimer.
Good day, welcome to ITWeb TV, brought to you by ITWeb. My name is James Francis, and today we are going to look at how managed service providers can make the right service choices to get more value and momentum in their businesses. Being an MSP is a balancing act. You need to offer services to customers while keeping overheads low. There's no point having a ton of revenue streams and you're spending all your time just trying to tend to them. This is a challenge for MSPs, especially because in the market, they are evolving, they are doing more, their work is getting more complex because customers' work is getting more complex as well. So they want to choose the right services. How do they do this? What is the criteria that you can apply to services and service providers? We're going to be looking at this today, and we're specifically going to channel it through the prism of email modernization, which also means our conversation today is an opportunity for MSPs to learn how they can add niche services, how they can vet those services and make sure they get the right package, the right deal, the right quality that's going to help grow their business as well as their customers. And this brings us to my guest today. We are here with a company called Exclaimer, and Exclaimer is a specialist in the email signature solution world. They have a platform, they have expertise. They work a lot with managed service providers on bringing these tools to the MSP's customers and help them run their email signatures better. So they have a great view of what's happening in the MSP world and also what creates a high value product for MSPs. They are the guys who can really help us unpack this topic today. And with that, I would like to welcome two guests from Exclaimer. First is Jim Turner, Exclaimer's Chief Operating Officer, as well as Paul Cox, their Channel Manager for Middle East and Africa. Jim, Paul, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, James. Thank you. It's great to be here today.
Hi, James. Thanks for having us today.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Jim. I'm looking forward to this conversation today. Firstly, because I did not realize there's so much you could do with email signatures. But secondly, in recent times, I have learned how the MSP market is evolving and how it is harder to get some opportunities out there and make sure you do the right opportunities, the right investment for that long-term delivery. So very glad to have you guys here today so we can unpack this a little bit more. And I think, Paul, I'd like to start on the question about email modernization. Let's just frame this because a lot of MSPs will take this to their customers. Why do so many businesses still avoid email modernization? Why do they still rely on legacy email systems such as Exchange Server 2019, but also 2016 and some other examples?
Well, I think it's a great question. Ultimately, I think it comes down to a bit of resistance to change, but also a lot of complexities. Many organizations have simply relied on on-premise Exchange for years. It's stable, it's familiar, and it's tightly integrated to their environment. So there's a natural hesitation of why fix what's not broken. But the world's moving on, and we can't avoid that. With Microsoft ending support for Windows 10, Exchange 2016, and Exchange 2019 reaching end of life, organizations are now faced with real security and compliance concerns. It's not just a software upgrade, it's an urgent need to modernize their entire infrastructure. And that's when modern cloud services come in. So things like Microsoft 365, Google Workspace, they offer so many advantages. That could be stronger security, built-in compliance, seamless collaboration, and ultimately automatic updates. And from an MSP perspective, this shift opens the door to new service offerings, but also recurring revenue. So there's a huge opportunity here. It's about helping customers modernize. It isn't just good for them, but it's also a big opportunity for the channel.
Jim, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to double down on what Paul said, I completely agree. I think the wider picture here is that it changes hard, but obsolescence is harder. Most IT leaders know this move is overdue. They just need help making it painless, which is where we come in. I kind of think legacy systems are a bit like landlines, phone landlines. It's like they still work. They're no longer really working for you. So it's making sure we can maximize that for our partners.
I love that idea of a legacy system like phone lines, etc. But let's take that then to specifically what we're talking about today, because I do want to cover a little bit on specifically email signatures. A lot of people would look this as an older technology, etc. And yet it is prolific. You see it everywhere. It's widely used. Paul, why do email signatures and updating them matter and managing them matter so much to your average business? What is the use case that we are focusing on here today?
Well, email signatures are often overlooked by businesses. They're used every day with your names and job titles in the email, but actually they're a powerful business asset. If you think about it, every employee in your organization sends tens to hundreds of emails. That could be to prospects, that could be to existing customers, part of those business relationships. But those are actually thousands of brand impressions every week that are completely underused. And if those signatures are inconsistent within your organization, people just adding their own logos, their own fonts and colors, perhaps different sizes, you're actually damaging your brand image. And that's ultimately small things that are adding up to a wider problem, and that's perception of your brand. But if you flip that on its head, what if every email in your organization was actually reinforcing your brand, perhaps promoting a campaign, or included a clear call to action, perhaps booking a meeting with me so I can perform a demonstration, or reserving some time so that you can come and see me at one of the booths at an event we're attending, or perhaps even rating the level of satisfaction you have with an organization. Those could be tracked clicks, and suddenly that plain old email signature that you have that just sits at the bottom of the email becomes a live marketing channel for the organization.
Thank you, Paul. I mean, you convinced me there. Email signatures are incredibly important. But Jim, I kind of also want to say, okay, but why is this a service? Why should MSPs care? Can't I just hand this off to a IT admin to do, or just tell the guy at the desk, hey, look after your own email? Where do you guys come in as Exclaimer? Why do you feel that MSPs can benefit from what you offer?
That is a great question, James, and I'm very glad you asked it. So there's a two-speed thing here happening, and I think Exclaimer is an interesting business because Exclaimer's biggest competitor is nothing. Which kind of feeds into your point is why do MSPs need this, and what is the real benefit here? And there's kind of two areas here. There's the kind of efficiency play. So understanding that managing email signatures is not really just about logos and links. It's about control, compliance, consistency at scale that Paul referred to then, which I think is a really good point. And I think it's coming out of this. This is an efficient tool. This is an efficient way to run businesses. It's an efficient way to administrate multiple businesses at the same time. This centralized control really gives you that ability, which out the box, which is what we do at a very basic level. And I'm going to kind of layer on what Paul said there, which I think is really interesting, which is about how companies see this, if they see it as a real asset. So it's not just a manual IT job, better to think of them as strategic assets that work for us automatically. And I love what Paul said about meeting booking, getting CSAT embedded in there, maximizing that email real estate for all the emails that you send every single day. An Exclaimer turns something mundane into something meaningful, but more importantly, something measurable. So this is, as Paul said, every email that your company sends is a marketing opportunity, but it's a customer engagement opportunity. It's the way we can absolutely maximize those touch points through every interaction with every customer and partner and vendor that you're working with every day.
I love that idea. Strategic asset, zero touch, scalable. These are words that MSPs do want to hear. It's words that clients want to hear. These concepts work very strongly. And this is why we're having this conversation today with you guys from Exclaimer, because you work very often in those grooves where MSPs can find a lot of recurring value, both for their customers and for themselves. And Paul, let's start diving a little bit more into that for the MSPs. We know it's a very crowded software as a service market, and a lot of the MSPs out there are wondering where to place their bets for that long-term recurring revenue growth. And this is where I wanted to speak to Exclaimer, because you guys have a lot of experience and success in this. So from the work you guys do and the experience you've seen in the market out there, what is your message to MSPs when they are making these bets?
Advice to MSPs right now would be to go where stickiness is. There's too many SaaS products out there on the market that are in and out. They're exciting 1 year, then they're gone in year 2. Exclaimer's the opposite. It integrates nicely into the customer's communication flow, which is email, by the way. Once it's in, it stays. It's low support burden. It's a product that customers rely on every single day. For the MSPs, you want something that's low overhead, something that's easy to onboard, easy to manage, but ultimately easy to grow. MSPs at the end of the day want dependable recurring revenue, and Exclaimer delivers that in spades.
That shows a lot of the value that MSPs are looking for. I think a lot of them have learned the hard way that if you bank too much on services that you can't rely on as a service provider, at the end of the day, it doesn't reflect badly to the service you're using from the customer of the MSP. It's the MSP who looks bad for the customer, because you're like, well, you sold me something I'm not using anymore. Let's deep dive a little bit more into this. Another reason why I wanted to chat to the Exclaimer guys today. Jim, you guys have a phenomenal level of stickiness. I believe it's 95% gross renewal rates. That's quite incredible. I want to know, how do you guys achieve this? What is behind that level of customer stickiness? Because a lot of MSPs are going to go like, wow, that's fantastic. I'll just keep them on board and not have to work too much for it. Can you please just give it, what's the secret sauce that makes sure people stick to your product?
I would love to take any credit for our renewal rate, but it is all the product. So we have an incredibly sticky product. A case in point, we moved to the cloud in 2015, and we still have thousands of customers from 2015. This speaks to trust and incredibly high lifetime value. So MSPs are hunting for recurring revenue without the recurring headaches, and that really is Exclaimer. The platform just works. The buying cycle is very fast. We can onboard customers in hours, not days. It's relatively passive revenue and frictionless renewals. So that renewal rate is high because the system just works. Also, because of the price point, it's like when you're looking at books and actually you're making a good margin on this tool that really is adding value, that's when you kind of go, well, why would I move? And again, as I said earlier, our biggest competitor is nothing. So it's like, actually, this is solving a real problem for us. Are we going to move to a competitor? It's very sticky because that's a bit of a pain to do. So good product, really sticky, easy onboarding, frictionless experience.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jim. Paul, I want to dive a little bit deeper in there. Jim gave some of the answer. I'm looking now for this next question. But, in technology, we talk about people, process, technology. And yes, the product, the technology does a lot for what you guys deliver at Exclaimer. However, it's not just the product. And again, for MSPs needing to vet people, partners out there, if they just looked at the technology and what it does, the platform, etc., that's not all of it. That people and process thing is very important. It's something you guys do very well too. Jim alluded to it with the quick onboarding and so forth, but can you talk a little bit about speed and simplicity for MSPs and your experience? What are they looking for, and how do you feel you guys meet them on those expectations?
Well, I'd say that the importance for speed and simplicity for MSPs is actually, it's of huge importance. MSPs are often juggling dozens of clients. They can't afford nowadays to spend days on deployment. Taking a look at Exclaimer and reverting back to my answer in the previous question, we said that we can get Exclaimer up and running in no time at all. For us, that's typically under an hour. We talk about people and process, but coming back to that product point, an easy onboarding is actually just talking about product led. It's clicking through a very straightforward wizard, especially from the MSP perspective, to get the solution embedded into that customer's email platform, have them up and running under an hour, applying those signatures within the organization. And then from there, it's just scaling that from a small test group of users to the entire organization. That's going to take a little bit longer, of course. There's going to be some people involved in that process to make sure that that's deployed correctly. But ultimately, it's a very smooth process. You don't need to be implementing solutions nowadays that is a case of having members of staff on site deploying solutions that are going to take lengthy processes and ultimately days of hard graft. A lot of solutions out there that MSPs are looking to sell and to grow revenue from can be deployed within minutes, under an hour. It's that speed that the MSPs are looking for, ultimately to make sure that they can move on to the next customer, onboard them, and again, grow that revenue for them.
Thank you, Paul. And that speaks to the ease of deployment, helping customers get on board. As I said earlier, the MSP is what the customer sees, not the service. And you want that effect on there so that the customer is impressed. Jim, let's take this then a step further, because another thing that MSPs want is to grow their revenue. In the subscription model, you would like to expand it out. You would like to scale that out. However, you don't want to constantly resell. And that's something else you guys take a pride in as well. So let's talk about that. How can partners grow their revenue without needing to constantly resell what they're offering?
So you mentioned the phrase secret sauce earlier, James, and I think if there is some secret sauce in this, it is here. So how can partners grow revenue without needing to constantly resell? That's the big question, right? And we talk a lot about, we have a phrase at Exclaimer, which is make it easy. So make it easy for our partners, for our customers, for our internal teams to be successful in their roles. And zero touch expansion is the secret sauce, right? So we talked about our gross retention being 95%. Our net retention as business is 108%. And that is almost exclusively passive upsell from additional seats being added to our customer base. So their success, as their businesses grow, as they retain their teams and grow their businesses, we get that success too. So the better we look after those customers and they stay and they're sticky and they're happy, the more users they add, the more revenue we get into the business. So it's extremely passive, extremely zero touch. So this is seat growth, and we do have further upgrade opportunities, but only if you want to kind of invest in that. This is a wonderful way to passively grow your base. So once it's plugged in, and like Paul talked about the ease of onboarding, double down on that, incredibly easy to onboard. The renewal rate is incredibly high, and you know those customers are going to grow with you. So their success is your success, which is a wonderful thing to be a part of.
I mean, that is impressive, that kind of passive growth, and also speaks to the fact that when you have a service that both adds value to the customer and it's easy for them to expand on that service, that benefits the MSP. So it probably won't apply to all kinds of SaaS products out there, but definitely shows the value of finding, for MSPs, finding those very effective niche cases such as email signatures that'll help expand almost naturally, because the customer will figure out, hey, this is great, I need more of that here and there. That goes on the customer side. Paul, if we kind of then look at the MSP, they still need support in order to scale. It can be onboarding or training, it can be co-selling, marketing support. These are important things I think MSPs must almost look first when they're judging a service. I mean, yes, this platform is great, it does awesome stuff, but what is the support that I get from my platform, from my service provider to the MSP, so that I have less friction in my organization and passing the benefits along to my customer? What do you guys in Exclaimer do to support your partners in terms of scaling, onboarding, marketing, etc.?
You make a good point there, James. We've talked a lot about the product. We've talked a lot about automation and ease of onboarding. But all of that means nothing if you don't actually have that personal relationship and the ability to get MSPs up and running and enabled in the first place. What good is a solution if there isn't the enablement piece behind the scenes? So at Exclaimer, we've built a full support ecosystem. Our partner portal is packed with resources, sales assets, technical guides, campaign in a box kits, and we run regular enablement sessions with our partners to offer certifications, to keep those partnerships sharp and to ensure that our MSPs know exactly how to onboard their customers and to support them going forward. But we don't just stop at enablement. We actually co-sell too, especially here in South Africa. We work closely with our local distributor ProData, and they're doing an incredible job helping MSPs build pipeline and close deals there on the ground. So when our partners win, we all win.
Fantastic. Thank you, Paul. I think this is a great conversation for MSPs to listen to because it is such a competitive market out there. Personally, for me, I was excited to take on this interview because we were chatting before we did the interview just to get to know things a bit more. And I told them I'm fascinated by this idea of email signatures, something that's quite overlooked and yet can do so much for your organization, but we can underappreciate the management of this. I was just thinking, I don't often use signatures because I'm always worried how they might show up on the other side. Who knows what email clients people are using? And yet, when I saw the topic that we were doing here, I went back at the correspondence of Exclaimer we've had so far and went and had a look at their signatures. And I was like, wow, that is really nice. We're not just talking social media. As I mentioned earlier, you get meeting booking, you get nice title, you get nice formatting. It just shows effort. It shows a nice touch. And what I'm getting at here is that's what MSPs want to deliver to their clients as well. That what keeps their clients with them are the products that show that value, especially where the client doesn't expect it, where they realize, wow, I can build on this. This is affordable. I can expand on that. And that's what the MSPs want to put out there. And at the same time, these products need to create revenue streams that add value to them and their customers, but remain low friction and scalable. And if you are an MSP looking back at this conversation we had today, I hope you've picked up a lot of good tips on how to evaluate any service, not just Exclaimer. We're talking to Exclaimer here because they have a lot of success in this area. They know what they're doing. They like working with MSPs. But if you go through this interview, you'll find there are multiple things to learn on how you can vet your service providers to know that you are getting the right service for your business and for your customers. And then on top of that, I would like to just loop this back to our original opening point, which is email modernization. There is an actual serious opportunity on the table right now for companies. They are going to need to upgrade their email systems. In the case of the Microsoft environment, there is from 2019, we're moving to, there's an on-premise system. There's also the Microsoft 365 system sitting in the cloud. They are subscription-based already, both of them. They both give a lot of scope of bringing in extra services. So this is a terrific opportunity for MSPs out there. But before we close our interview today, I would like to give our guests just a last moment to add some final closing thoughts from them. So with that, first, Jim, I'd like to jump to you. Your parting thoughts for us, please.
Thank you, James. So closing comments. So first of all, thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here today and answer these questions. Always interesting for us to do so. My closing comments are the MSP market is crowded. The winners are going to be the ones who make complex things simple for their clients, I think is my key takeaway. Exclaimer delivers a high impact. It delivers high impact with low effort, which we've talked about earlier. And it's a nice frictionless way for MSPs to add real value, drive recurring revenue, and make life easier for their teams and their customers.
Thank you very much, Jim. Over to you, Paul. Some words for the market for closing our conversation.
Thanks, James. I'd just like to thank you for your time today as well. My closing comments would be to take it back to the start of the session. As you said, email modernization. Email's not going anywhere. It is just evolving. And in that evolution, every part of the stack matters, including signatures. With Exclaimer, MSPs can solve real-world problems quickly and turn it into recurring revenue. It's a simple idea, done really well, and we're excited to work with MSPs across South Africa and beyond.
I really love that point. Email is not going anywhere, but also you want simplicity in the market. That is what's going to be driving things forward. That is what has been driving things for at least the last 10 years. I would say that is the reality of a connected, cloud-based world. It is differentiation through multiple services that create that simplicity, allowing organizations to do what they do best and leverage what they know well. And we know email very well. So great advice from Exclaimer. And I'd like to thank my two guests today. You heard there from Paul Cox. He is Exclaimer's channel manager for Middle East and Africa, as well as Jim Turner, Exclaimer's chief operating officer. I'm very glad to have them here today. Also, very glad to have you join us today for this interview. Thank you for listening. Please go out there, choose the right services, look for those opportunities, and above all, stay safe, get the value out there in the company that you need from your digital services. We will see you at the next interview. Thank you. Goodbye.